What if the world had never known religion? Imagine a reality where there were no beliefs, no temples, no sacred texts. Since the dawn of civilization, faith has shaped cultures, inspired art, guided morality, and sparked conflicts. But what would happen if this fundamental aspect of human history had never existed? Would science have advanced faster? Would laws and ethics be completely different? How would our world look today? In this video, we're diving into an alternate reality where religion was never a part of human history. Get ready for a thought-provoking journey full of surprising possibilities and questions that might change the way you see both the past and the future. Curious? Then stick around until the end, because what's coming next might just blow your mind. Philosophy and science would have advanced sooner. What if religion had never existed? One of the most immediate effects would likely be the accelerated development of philosophy and science. Throughout history, many discoveries were suppressed or delayed due to religious opposition. Think about Galileo, who was forced to recant his astronomical findings, or Copernicus, whose heliocentric model of the universe was considered heretical. Without these obstacles, would we have reached scientific breakthroughs centuries earlier? Imagine a world where the scientific revolution happened during the Middle Ages instead of the Renaissance. Would we have landed on the moon in the 1600s? Could electricity, antibiotics, or quantum physics have been discovered much earlier? The absence of religious dogma could have led to a society more open to questioning, experimenting, and innovating without fear of persecution. However, it's important to note that religion wasn't the only factor slowing scientific progress. Political power, social structures, and even lack of resources also played a role. But without religious doctrines restricting certain lines of thought, progress in fields like medicine, astronomy, and physics could have been far more rapid. Another aspect to consider is philosophy. Many of history's greatest thinkers, like Descartes, Kant, and Nietzsche, had to frame their ideas in ways that didn't directly challenge dominant religious beliefs. Without those constraints, philosophical inquiry could have evolved in entirely different directions, perhaps leading to a more rational or even more pragmatic understanding of ethics, existence, and human nature. Would the world be better or worse without religious influence on knowledge? That's a tough question. But one thing is certain, without religious restrictions, humanity might have unlocked some of the biggest scientific mysteries much earlier. Religious conflicts would have never existed. Throughout history, countless wars, persecutions, and societal divisions have been fueled by religious differences. From the Crusades to the Inquisition, from sectarian violence to modern-day extremism, religion has often been a catalyst for conflict. But what if religion had never existed? Would humanity have been more peaceful? Without religious ideologies to divide people, many historical conflicts might never have happened. The 30 Years' War, which devastated Europe, was deeply tied to religious disputes. The violent clashes between Protestants and Catholics, Sunni and Shia, or Hindus and Muslims might never have taken place. Even events like the Salem witch trials, where people were executed based on superstition, would have been inconceivable in a world without religious beliefs. However, this doesn't mean war itself would be eradicated. Humans have always found reasons to fight. Territory, resources, political ideologies, and power struggles would still exist. But without religion as a justification, perhaps wars would have been based more on tangible conflicts rather than ideological or theological differences. Another aspect to consider is social harmony. Would societies be more united without religious divisions? The lack of a dominant belief system could have led to a world where people identify more by shared humanity rather than by theological allegiance. Countries might have formed based on cultural, philosophical, or economic interests rather than religious commonalities. On the flip side, religion has also been a source of unity, bringing communities together and providing shared moral guidelines. Without it, people might have found other ways to create divisions. Political ideologies, nationalism, or even philosophical disputes could have taken religion's place as a cause for conflict. So, would the world be truly more peaceful, or would humanity have simply found new reasons to fight? That's the big question. The moral system would be different. Religion has played a huge role in shaping morality throughout history. Concepts like justice, kindness, and honesty are often linked to religious teachings. But what if religion had never existed? Would morality be drastically different, or would humanity have developed ethical principles in another way? Without religious commandments dictating right and wrong, societies would have likely based their moral systems on reason, empathy, and social contracts, rather than divine authority. Instead of morality being taught through sacred texts, ethical principles could have been structured around what benefits the greatest number of people. Philosophers like Socrates, Confucius, and John Stuart Mill already argued that morality doesn't need divine origins. It can be grounded in human logic and the desire for a functional society. Would this make people more or less ethical? Some argue that without the fear of divine punishment, morality might be more flexible, even opportunistic. Others believe it would be more consistent based on human needs rather than religious doctrine. In a world without religion, the focus might shift from sin and virtue to fairness, well-being, and harm reduction. On the other hand, religion has historically provided a strong sense of community and accountability. Without a divine watcher, would people still behave the same way when no one is looking? Or would morality evolve into a purely self-serving system? Some suggest that laws and social norms would have filled the gap, ensuring that people act ethically through social pressure and rational self-interest rather than religious faith. In short, the absence of religion wouldn't necessarily mean the absence of morality, but it could mean a morality based on different foundations. One rooted in logic, social cooperation, and human nature rather than divine authority. Less censorship of knowledge and art. Religion has often influenced what is considered acceptable in society, particularly in areas like science, literature, and art. Throughout history, many ideas, books, and artworks have been censored, banned, or even destroyed because they contradicted religious beliefs or moral standards. But what if religion had never existed? Would creativity and intellectual freedom have flourished without restriction? Imagine a world where books like On the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin were never controversial, where Galileo's heliocentric model of the universe was immediately accepted rather than suppressed, and where artists didn't have to fear backlash for exploring themes considered taboo by religious authorities. Entire artistic movements, from Renaissance paintings to modern literature, have been shaped by both religious influence and religious censorship. Without that factor, art might have evolved in completely different ways, perhaps more experimental, unrestricted and daring from much earlier in history. The same goes for knowledge. Many scientific discoveries faced resistance because they contradicted religious teachings. If there were no religious limitations on what could be studied, taught, or published, perhaps scientific advancements would have come even faster. Subjects like human evolution, medicine, and cosmology could have been explored without fear of persecution, leading to breakthroughs centuries before they actually happened. However, it's also worth noting that religion has inspired some of history's greatest works of art, music, and literature. Without it, would we still have the Sistine Chapel, the Divine Comedy, or even the deep philosophical reflections found in religious texts? it's possible that different inspirations would have taken their place, leading to new artistic and intellectual movements that we can only imagine. Would a world without religious censorship be a place of ultimate creative freedom, or would it lack some of the richness and depth that religious influence brought to culture? Society's structure would be different. Religion has shaped societies for thousands of years, influencing laws, governments, and even social hierarchies. But what if religion had never existed? How different would our world be today? For starters, many legal systems were originally based on religious principles. Concepts like justice, crime, and punishment were often linked to religious doctrines. Without religion, laws might have been developed purely from logic and practicality, focusing on social harmony rather than divine morality. Would this have led to a fairer society, or would laws have been more flexible, changing based on cultural and philosophical shifts? Another key change would be the absence of religious institutions in power. Historically, churches, temples, and religious leaders have held significant political and economic influence. Without them, governments might have formed differently, perhaps relying more on democratic structures from the start rather than monarchies and theocracies. Feudal societies where kings ruled by divine right might never have existed, leading to different power dynamics and potentially faster progress toward modern democracy. Even the way people interact in daily life could be different. Many traditions, customs, and even family structures have been influenced by religious values. Would marriage still be as culturally significant? Would people have developed alternative rituals for birth, death, and major life transitions? The absence of religion wouldn't mean the absence of culture, but it could mean that human traditions would have evolved in entirely new directions. At the same time, some argue that religion has played a crucial role in uniting people and creating strong, supportive communities. Without it, societies might have needed to develop new forms of social bonding, perhaps through philosophy, shared ethics, or a more secular form of spirituality. Would a world without religion be more equal and progressive, or would it struggle to create the same sense of unity and purpose that religion has provided for so long? Alternative forms of existential comfort would have emerged. One of religion's most significant roles has been providing comfort in the face of uncertainty, suffering, and death. For many, belief in an afterlife or a higher purpose helps them cope with loss, fear, and existential questions. But what if religion had never existed? What alternative ways would humanity have developed to deal with these deep concerns? Without religious explanations for life's mysteries, philosophy and science might have taken an even greater role in helping people understand existence. Concepts like humanism, existentialism, and stoicism could have become the dominant ways to find meaning in life. Instead of looking to divine beings, people might have turned more toward reason, self-discovery, and shared human experience to navigate their emotions and struggles. Perhaps entirely new traditions would have developed to replace religious rituals. Funerals, for example, might have been focused purely on celebrating a person's life rather than preparing them for an afterlife. Meditation, mindfulness, and psychological self-improvement could have become more widespread as ways to find inner peace. Some cultures might have placed an even greater emphasis on storytelling, art, or collective experiences to create a sense of connection and purpose. Of course, existential anxiety wouldn't simply disappear. Questions like, why are we here? And what happens after we die would still exist. But without religious frameworks, societies might have approached them with a more scientific or philosophical mindset. Maybe space exploration or AI research would have advanced more quickly in an attempt to uncover the mysteries of consciousness and the universe. Would this world be more rational, or would it lack the emotional support that religion has provided? For so many, could humans find meaning without a belief in a higher power, or would they create new forms of spirituality based on something else entirely? Holidays and traditions would be different. Many of the world's most widely celebrated holidays, Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, Ramadan, and Diwali, are rooted in religious traditions. But what if religion had never existed? Would we still have holidays, or would they look completely different? Without religious influences, societies might have developed celebrations based purely on nature, history, or human achievements. Instead of Christmas, people might celebrate the winter solstice in a way that focuses purely on seasonal change rather than religious symbolism. Instead of Easter, there could be a festival marking the arrival of spring, centered around growth, renewal, and community. National and historical celebrations could have taken a much bigger role. Imagine a world where the biggest global holidays were based on scientific milestones, like the discovery of electricity or the first moon landing. Maybe we'd have an annual worldwide festival celebrating human progress, honoring medical advancements, space exploration, or cultural achievements. On the other hand, people love traditions, and even without religion, they would likely create meaningful rituals. Weddings, funerals, and coming-of-age ceremonies might still exist, but would be shaped by cultural rather than religious values. The focus could be more on personal connections, historical continuity, or even philosophical ideals. Would this world have more universal celebrations that everyone could enjoy together? Or would it lack the emotional depth and sense of belonging that religious holidays provide? Would people miss the spiritual significance, or would they find joy in traditions shaped purely by human experience? There would be no wealthy and powerful religious institutions. Religion has been responsible for building some of the world's most powerful and influential institutions. The Catholic Church, for example, owns vast amounts of property and has shaped politics and economics for centuries. But what if religion had never existed? Would political and financial power have been distributed differently? Without religion, these institutions wouldn't have existed to accumulate wealth and influence. Churches, mosques, and temples would never have been constructed, and the resources used to build them might have been allocated elsewhere, perhaps toward technological development, infrastructure, or education. Political alliances and conflicts shaped by religious institutions might also have taken a very different course. In a world without religious organizations, the balance of power might have leaned more heavily toward governments and businesses. Monarchs would never have ruled with the justification of divine right, and religious institutions would never have been used as intermediaries between rulers and the people. Instead, societies might have focused more on political structures, based on human reason and cooperation. Would that have resulted in stronger democracies, or simply shifted control to other influential groups? However, religion hasn't only been a tool for power, it has also acted as a form of charity and support. Religious institutions have helped provide for the poor, establish schools and hospitals, and support social welfare. In a world without religion, those roles might have been filled by secular organizations or communities driven by humanism or philosophy. So, would the absence of wealthy religious institutions have made the world more equal, or would different power structures have emerged to take their place? The concept of destiny would be different. Religion has played a major role in shaping how people view fate, destiny, and the purpose of life. Many belief systems teach that everything happens for a reason, whether it's part of a divine plan or the result of karma. But what if religion had never existed? Would people still believe in destiny, or would they see life as a series of random events? Without religious influence, people might have developed a purely scientific or philosophical understanding of their existence. Instead of believing in a predetermined path, societies might have embraced the idea that life is shaped entirely by choices, circumstances, and probabilities. The focus could have shifted from accepting fate to actively shaping one's future through knowledge, effort, and innovation. Perhaps alternative ideas about destiny would have emerged, rooted in psychology, physics, or even chaos theory. Some cultures might have believed in a destiny of logic, where actions lead to inevitable consequences based purely on cause and effect. Others might have developed existentialist philosophies emphasizing personal freedom and the idea that meaning is something we create rather than something assigned by a higher power. Would this make people feel more liberated, knowing their future is entirely in their hands? Or would it create more anxiety, knowing there's no greater plan guiding their lives? Without religious teachings about destiny, some might find comfort in science and reason, while others might struggle with the randomness of existence. So, would a world without religious concepts of fate lead to more empowered individuals? Or would it leave people feeling lost without a larger purpose? The world's architecture would look different. Religion has heavily influenced architecture throughout history. From grand cathedrals and towering mosques to intricate temples and shrines, religious beliefs have shaped some of the most iconic structures on the planet. But what if religion had never existed? Would our cities and landscapes look completely different? Without religion, many of history's greatest architectural marvels wouldn't exist. There would be no pyramids built as tombs for divine rulers, no Gothic cathedrals with stained glass depicting biblical stories, no temples carved into mountains, and no massive statues of gods and saints. Instead, architecture might have evolved purely for practicality, focusing on function over spiritual symbolism. However, humans have always sought beauty and meaning in their surroundings. Even without religion, artistic and cultural influences would still shape buildings. Perhaps societies would have developed grand structures celebrating science, philosophy, or human achievement. Instead of massive churches and temples, we might have enormous libraries, observatories, or monuments dedicated to knowledge and progress. Another aspect to consider is city planning. Many towns and cities were historically built around religious centers, with churches, mosques, or temples as focal points. Without those structures, urban development might have looked entirely different, with more emphasis on communal spaces, education centers, or artistic hubs. Would a world without religious architecture be less awe-inspiring? Or would human creativity have simply found different ways to express itself? Would we have lost some of the world's most breathtaking structures, or would we have created new wonders based on science and human progress instead? So, what if religion had never existed? We've explored how science and philosophy might have advanced faster, how wars and conflicts could have taken a different shape, and how society's morals, traditions, and even architecture would have evolved in entirely new directions. Some things could have been better, perhaps more knowledge, fewer religious conflicts, and a world shaped by pure reason. But would that world have been more united, or would humanity have simply found new ways to divide itself? Without religion, people would have still searched for meaning, comfort, and purpose. Maybe they would have turned to science, philosophy, or humanism for answers. Or maybe they would have created new forms of belief, ones based on logic, shared culture, or something entirely unexpected. What do you think? Would a world without religion be a utopia of progress and unity? Or would we have lost something essential to the human experience? Let's discuss in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through an alternate reality, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now. It's full of even more mind-blowing what-if scenarios.